Hi, everybody. Welcome to Paystack Developer Workshop on Paystack Terminal. I'm Andrew. I'm with the DevRel team, and we're going to start in the next 2 minutes. So I'll just go ahead and we'll be playing a few videos, and you can get familiar with the platform Livestorm if this is the first time. So on the bottom right, you have the chat tab, and then you also have the questions tab. That's where you'll post your questions, and if a similar question has been, or if you have a similar question to the person who has posted, just upvote it. And then you can use the chat tab to just say hi to everybody, introduce yourselves, and yeah, make it interact a little. So with me on the call is Damilola. He'll be the one leading us through this session. By in the time being, just drop in a chat saying hi and where you're from, and then I'll play one last terminal video before we get started, as we wait for more people to join and before we get started. So cool, just use the chat tab and say hi and where you're dialing in from as we play one last video.
It's Friday evening, and several people are in line trying to do their last-minute grocery shopping before the weekend. You like seeing the store full, but grocery is a tough business. Low margins and high volume is the name of the game, which means that you need to do everything you can to keep customers coming back and increasing their basket size every time they do so. With Paystack Terminal, you can do this in several different ways. For example, let's say you're trying to increase the amount of business you get from corporate clients who tend to make very large orders. You can create a corporate discounts program that allows companies register a card to enjoy discounts if they spend over a certain amount. Corporates love that the terminal card reader automatically recognizes the card and applies the discount, saving them thousands every month. Now, let's say you have several ideas for how to structure a discount program in a way that actually drives sales. For example, we could promote a discount on a specific brand, or on an entire product category, or apply the discount on a particular day of the week. Usually, these experiments could be time-consuming to run, but you can program Terminal with different rules that apply discounts according to your defined parameters. This way, you can validate your discounting hypothesis quickly and arrive at a strategy that works in the long term. You can also integrate Terminal deeply into your marketing automation tools to ensure that you don't lose high-value customers to your competition. You could program it such that when your customer relationship management system notices that a regular customer hasn't made a purchase in a long time, it can automatically send them an SMS with a coupon they can redeem if they visit again within a certain time period. Connect your tools and make them work more seamlessly with Paystack Terminal.
Awesome. So we are just a minute in. So I think we'll hand over to Damilola. Damilola is part of our developer relations team, in charge of developer experience in particular. He'll be taking us through invoice payments on Paystack Terminal, as well as going through a code session. Along the way, you're free to drop your questions using the questions tab. It's on the bottom right of your screen, and I will be answering them, as well as dropping any relevant links. And then we'll break somewhere for your questions and answers. So please, I hope you guys enjoy this. Over to you, Damilola.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Welcome everyone to another developer workshop. Today we'll be focused on invoice payments on Paystack Terminal, and this is a continuation of the series we've been having on the Paystack Terminal. We had one in December, we had one last month, and the first one we had was targeted at merchants, and the second one, which we had last month, was more targeted towards developers. And well, we did a general overview of what the terminal was, the terminal is. We did a general overview of the integration flows and the features of terminal. So in this webinar, in this workshop, what we're going to be doing is we're going to focus on two of the integration methods available on the Paystack terminal, why it sets it apart from the other point of sale systems that are out there. Get some time, as Andrew instructed earlier, or as Andrew mentioned, try to introduce yourself in the chat, try to meet yourself in the chat, and let's just have a good session. It's going to be hands-on, so I might be quite fast in some areas, but the recording is going to be made available to everyone at the end of the session. So once again, my name is Damilola and I work with the developer relations team here at Paystack. So diving into the workshop, we're going to do a quick recap on the previous sessions we've had, the previous workshop. And what we mentioned in the previous workshop was that the Paystack Terminal is a platform that enables developers to build programmable in-person payment experience. What this means particularly is that typically the way point of sale system work, you just type in the amount you want to use and the customer puts in their card and they make payments. But with the Paystack Terminal, which is a SmartPay P1000 Android powered payment device, it gives you more ability to be able to do more with your terminal. So basically, let your terminal do more work for you as opposed to you trying to do a lot of things. And these abilities that will provide the Android operating system running on the terminal and the hardware provides some of these features that we're exposing to developers in order for them to be able to build a richer payment experience. And some of these features are the multiple payment channels. So typically most not typically, like generally, most point of sale system have just the ability to use cards to make payments. With a Paystack terminal, we have the USSD option, we have the bank transfer option. So this means customers have more options to make payments at the point of checkout. We also have an end of day reconciliation, an easy end of day reconciliation. So most point of sale system or most merchants that make use of point of sale system, they end up having to do manual reconciliation at the end of the day because there's a lump sum for the total amount that was received in a particular day. But the Paystack terminal is attached to your Paystack dashboard, and each payment that is made comes in as a single line entry on your Paystack dashboard. So this makes it easy for reconciliation and also easy for refunds. Then we have the blazing fast transaction, and this is particularly powered by the ability to connect the Paystack terminal to the Wi-Fi, and we also provide a global SIM which picks the strongest network in the area where the terminal is being used. So this allows you to be able to receive payments anywhere you are around the country. And split payments. So sometimes you run a business model where you and a particular merchant or multiple merchants want to split the amount that is being paid. So for example, if I run a restaurant company and if I run a restaurant and I have a partnership with a delivery company that allows me to come into my restaurant, they pick up meals for customers, and at the point of payment, we want to split payments probably in percentages or like fixed prices. That's possible with the Paystack terminal because you can initialize a transaction, you can accept payment that is split between partners. Also, custom apps, like I said, the Paystack terminal is powered by the Android operating system. This allows you build Android applications directly on the terminal, and it also allows the integration into ERPs, enterprise resource planning tools, and CRMs. And in as much as these CRMs or ERPs can accept or can is customizable via API consumption, you can integrate it to make use of the Paystack terminal in a sense where you more or less have like an inventory on your ERP or on your CRM, and at the point of payment, you can push that payment to the terminal. You can receive your payout anywhere with the Paystack terminal. Typically, most point of sale system are tied, an account number is tied to a particular point of sale system. But with the Paystack terminal, it is tied to the account on your Paystack dashboard. And what this means is on the Paystack dashboard, you can change the settlement account that you've added to the your dashboard. So this means if, for example, you are using this account today and you don't want to use it anymore, you can switch to a different account and you still receive your payout in that account. And finally, easy refunds. Like I mentioned about the end of day reconciliation, each transaction that is received via the Paystack terminal, it comes in as a single line entry on the Paystack dashboard, and this allows you to be able to refund a customer right from the dashboard. This is just a quick recap on what we've done so far on these sessions we've had so far. If you want to learn more about this, go to paystack.com/terminal to learn more about this feature. So you should have a call to action on your screen now. You can click on the link to follow along to learn more about the features and what sets the Paystack terminal apart from other point of sale system. So moving on, we discussed the integration flow, also the integration flows that are available on the Paystack terminal in the last session we had. We discussed 4 integration flow. From this presentation, you'll see that we have two flows that are grayed out. That's because we won't be focused on those 2 integration flows today. We'll focus majorly on invoices today. So we're going to be talking about the native invoices and the invoice payments. The difference between these 2 is that one is a no-code approach and the other one is a little bit of code approach. So let's head over to let's talk some more about how native invoices works and how you can use it to receive payments on the Paystack terminal. So native invoices generally is just like the invoice that has always existed in as a product on Paystack. So you go to your dashboard, you create an invoice. That invoice is sent to a customer, and once the customer receives the invoice, or at the point when you are going to complete a service for that a service to the customer, you can carry the terminal along, request for the code on the invoice that was created, and you can then use this to accept payment offline. So you can also previously, invoices were more or less like you can only receive them online, like using the Paystack checkout. But with the Paystack terminal now, you can also receive invoices on in-person payments or in person. And this does not give you the ability to customize because it's on the dashboard. You just create the invoice and it's sent to the customer via email. And it is majorly suitable for companies that don't have a tech team and companies that they probably already make use of invoices, but they are manually, and they want to make this slightly more organized by using like a digital kind of invoice. So it's suitable for them. And it's easy to do this, like just going to the dashboard to create this. And we're going to do a quick demo on how to create native invoices using the Paystack. How to create invoices on the dashboard and accepting the payments on Paystack terminal. So I'll be switching to my browser now to create an invoice and to show you how to receive payment on it. So once you log in into your Paystack dashboard, the default screen is going to be like the terminal. The default page is going to be like the transaction page. But all you have to do is to locate the invoices, go to the commerce section and click on invoices. This loads all the invoices that have been created, and the one that shows green means they've been paid for. The ones that are grayed out means are the ones that are yet to be paid for. So I'm going to go ahead to create a new invoice. Basically, you see something called request a payment button. So you click on that button. By default, a modal comes out and selects a professional invoice. So a professional invoice is meant for those people that probably have multiple products that they sell. So merchants that have like say a merchant that sells clothes, jewelries, accessories, shoes, and all. You might have a customer order each of these things. So line items are those things. Professional invoices allow you to create line items for each of the items you sell and the amount that's the quantity and amount for each of these items. But for the purpose of this workshop, we're going to be creating a simple invoice. I'm going to be using a service called Temp Mail to create to create an email for the invoice. So when you want to create an invoice, it's request for a customer email. So a customer email, an invoice is tied to a customer. So you need to add the customer email to create your invoice. So I'm going to use that temp mail that I got from the temp mail service and paste it into my customer field. So this allows me to receive the email sent to the customer. I'm going to put an amount because this is a live demo. I'm going to use the barest minimum amount, which is 100 naira, and I'm going to add a note to it. Say developer workshop. Okay. So I click on send. When I click on send, it brings a pop-up to like reaffirm that I'm trying to actually send this invoice to the customer. So it shows the amounts being requested for and the email being it's sent to. So I'm going to click on it's going to ask, are you good with this? So until you click on send request, it's not going to create the invoice or send it to the customer. So I'm going to click on send request now. So one thing to note is, once you send that request, an email is going to be sent to the customer. I'm going to check the service that we're using for later, but and on the back end, you can also see the invoice being created here with the amount, the email, the customer name. And when you click on it, it brings up a pop-up. So previously, people just use this copy link and send the link directly to the customer. This is to complete the payment on online using the checkout. And for the purpose of this tutorial, we are more interested in for this workshop. We are more interested in the offline reference. So the offline reference is this number that comes along with the invoice. It is what we're going to use to complete the payment in person, and you can see the status of the invoice. So, for example, if this invoice has not been paid for, say in a while, you can send a reminder, which will send a new reminder to the customer that, hey, you need to make payment for this invoice. Okay, so I'm just going to go back to the service I'm using to manage. So go back to the list. We'll have to try this again. Let me refresh. This is taking some time to load. But ideally, once it's finished loading out, yeah. Okay, so we have this email that was sent. So the amount is 100 Naira. Developer workshop was the note, and this is the pay now button, which is the same thing as that copy link we saw earlier. But we are more interested in the pay to pay offline. Use this reference at the lower part of the email. So this is the reference we need to complete payments on the Paystack Terminal. So I'm going to be switching to the terminal screen now to show how to receive this payment in person. So I'm going to click on, so on the terminal screen, we have the different options, different menu to accept payments in different way. One is one-time payments, which is the default one, a point of sale system like does, where you click on, you put the amount, and then customer asks for payment. Well, in this case, we're going to be focused on invoices. So I'm going to click on invoices. When I click on invoices, you see that a black screen comes up. That's because by default, invoice payments, we prioritized scanning with QR code. So for those that joined the last session, we talked about how the terminal comes with a camera. You can see a camera behind the terminal. So by default, we prioritize QR codes for receiving payment and not manual entry. But for the purpose of this particular demo, I'll enter the invoice manually. So I click on that enter reference manually, and I type in my reference. So the reference from the previous screen was 3433 15 220 312 search. Okay, so when you click on search, it's going to try to find the invoice on your integration. And if it doesn't find it, you can see like I got an error which says we couldn't find this invoice with the number. Please confirm the number. So if I check again, I made a mistake with the last digits or something or so. So I'm going to try this again. So it should be 314. And I click try again. So you can see that using the right reference, it's brought up the email address of the customer that you want to charge. It brings up the reference and it brings up the amount. So I'm going to click on charge 100 Naira now. Okay. So on charge 100 Naira, it's now going to bring up the different payment channels that we can use. Of course, card is the general thing that everyone is used to. So I'm going to be using a different payment channel. So I'm going to use USSD for the purpose of this workshop, and it asks me to select the bank. For now, Guarantee Trust Bank is the only one available, so I'm going to select that option, and I also have the bank as well. So it generates a USSD code. Generate a USSD code, and I'm going to I'm going to pick up my phone now to complete this USSD code. Star 737 star 33 star 4 star 590 944 hash. So I guess I can put my phone towards the side as well. So I'm going to click on this and it loads up the USSD screen. I guess I'll just put it on top. Let's see. Hopefully GT Bank does me well today. Okay, it says an error. I'm going to try again. Star 737 star 33 star 4 star 590 944 hash. Try again. It's still running the, I guess it's my network. My network is currently poor network on my mobile. So I'm going to try. Hopefully this goes. Connection problem. One last time. Hopefully third time is the charm. Third time works. 3 4 star 5 90 944. It's probably an issue with the bank. So if this doesn't work, I'm going to have to try out a different payment channel. And luckily, that's the point of having different payment channels. Okay, USSD is not working, so I'm going to try pay with transfer. So I'm going to go back on the screen. I'm going to try bank transfer. So when you use bank transfer, it brings up a bank code that you can transfer. You can make a transfer into. So again, I'm going to log into my banking application. Search for Wema Bank. Wema Bank. Okay. Then I type in the bank account 899 46 699 772. So it's going to try to resolve the account number on my phone. And once it's resolved, it shows my screen is dark or something, but it shows the Paystack checkout here. I think you can see it a little. Paystack checkout as the account name. I'm going to click on next now, and I'm going to send that amount, which is 100 naira. And make the transfer. Okay. All right. Transfer has been made, but one thing about transfer is sometimes it takes a while to receive the transfer. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click on confirm payment. So it's going to try to it's going to try to confirm the payment in the background. And this helps a lot because it prevents people from having to either wait a long time or people having to what's it called, people having to like not get value for their service. So this might take a while to confirm, but hopefully it does it within the 4 minutes. It rained heavily in my side of the world, but this might be a reason for a delay in all this. But we'll switch back to the browser while this is still running in the background, and we can go back to the dashboard to see the invoice. So if I come back to the dashboard here, I'll just refresh this page and we can see if that has been completed. Okay, so it's still not completed. So while that is trying to is being completed, we'll switch back and continue. I will come back to see if this has been accepted. Okay, so over to the slide. Okay, so that's how you accept payments, like with the Paystack terminal with native invoices. So basically, you put in the offline reference. Once the offline reference has been entered, it tries to confirm the invoice. Once the invoice is confirmed, it shows you a screen to charge the invoice. And once the invoice has been charged successfully, it will print out a receipt to confirm payment. So that's it for the native invoice. But one thing we'll note is that while I was trying to do a demo for this native invoice, it's there's tendency for input error. Like the number is quite long and you can make customers can make mistakes, someone can be jittery and all. So which is why we have a different flow that allows for what's it called, custom invoice custom invoice payment. So with custom invoice payment, this requires a developer. So basically, any team that has a developer, they can the custom invoice payment should be one of the things they think about, and not with just the Paystack dashboard. So with this, a developer with API knowledge integrates the invoice API. So you consume the invoice API, and the offline reference is then converted or like encoded into a QR code, which is the default method of reading an invoice, or of loading an invoice on the Paystack terminal. So this is suitable for like I've hinted before, pay on delivery models. It's also suitable for business models that allow customers to walk in to confirm their payments. So with custom invoice payments, we're going to be integrating two endpoints. At the point when we're trying to create the invoice, we have to put an email address. So in the background, a customer was created with that email address. So because an email is tied to a customer, so you need a customer first before you can create an invoice. So we're going to be going into a demo session in which we're going to showcase what we're going to build for this demo and how you can integrate it into your system. Okay, so back on my browser, I'm going to be showing you a completed version of the application. Okay, so let me refresh this. This has been deployed on a Netlify server. So if you take note of the URL, this is the completed version, but we're going to be building out the integration for this. So it's a simple cat list of plants, the amount, you select the different the quantity you want. You can increase, you can decrease. Then at the point of payment, you put in your email. So Damilola at workshop. My address somewhere. And when I click on place order, creates the customer, and then it loads the offline reference both as text and as QR code. So what this means is you can also do the same thing on your say on your application. So you can create a QR code as opposed to probably sending an email to the customer. You create a QR code that will probably be displayed in the application, and at the point of payment, the QR code is scanned and you can see how it works. So note the URL here that this is the Netlify one that has been deployed, but we're going to switch now to the local host one. So I'm going to switch to my VS Code first. So to walk you through the sample application. So this application is available on our GitHub OSS, and it's there are two branches on GitHub OSS. One is the main branch, and the other one is the starter branch. The main branch has the completed version, which is what has been deployed on Netlify. The starter branch is the skeleton I'm using now for this tutorial and for this workshop, which we'll be using to retry to build out the integration. Okay, so a quick run through of the application. It's a simple Vue.js application with three components. The layout. So the layout has two left and right side. The left side holds the cart and the right side holds the receipt. The cart is very basic. It reads data from this plant.js, which has just 4 items, and it loads it back to the cart, and it loads it on the screen by looping through everything, loading it on the screen. That's how the cart works basically. And then we have the receipt. So the receipt is the one that actually has most of the parts we're building from. So on the receipt page, this is the form for the email, and this is the form for address. Then we have a button, and we have a button to what's it called? And we have the button to place the order. This is the button to place the order. Then we have the different the footer for the amount and everything that we saw on the page. And finally, there's this component there's this section that isn't being loaded at the moment. So it only loads if you are familiar with Vue, or if you're not familiar with Vue, if you are familiar with any framework that allows you load components only when something is available with state. So we say that this is only going to show when an offline reference is available. And how do you get that offline reference? So we are managing our states in this and in down in the file. So we have offline reference, we have QR code. So the QR code will be loaded in an image, and the offline reference will be loaded into this P tag. So how does this work? Basically, we already have methods that allow us create customer and create an invoice. So these methods make a call to our API. Once for the create customer, it makes a call to the create customer API. Once the customer has been created, it's on successful creation, it calls the create invoice method inside the same file. So the create invoice method also calls the create invoice endpoint, passes the response, and then loads that state, which is the offline reference and the QR code. So because this is being deployed on Netlify, we are using Netlify function to manage our API. So we have the create customer function, which is create dash customer is the same thing you are seeing on this file, which is create dash create dash customer. Yeah, so the file name determines the API endpoint. So we have create invoice as well. And you can also see that down here, create invoice. So basically, we'll be fleshing out these two files. And at the end of the session, we should be able to have something that shows the QR code in our app and can complete the payment with Terminal. So first thing first, let me start my server using Netlify dev. This loads the server. Okay, cool. So now we can see that we have our local host being loaded here. So if I should test this and I put say test email at email.com and I put something here, anything. When I click this, nothing is going to happen because we've not wired that part up. So what we're going to do is now we're going to go to our file. So I have this extension on VS Code that allows me to see what I'm supposed to do in a particular repository or in a particular code base. So the first thing is we're going to be focused on customer because you need to have a customer before you can have an invoice. So we go to our customer file and we have all the to-dos there, which is kind of easy to follow. So if you are coding along, it's easy to follow through with the to-dos that are there. So the first thing is it says install and import all dependency. Dependency here is node fetch and environment variable. So to get started, I'm going to back in my terminal. I'm going to the project is managed with Yarn. So I'm going to do Yarn add node dash fetch. So while we're installing our dependency, let's try to get our environment variable into our project. And our environment variable is basic. There's a sample here, which is our base URL, our secret key. You can ignore the vit base URL because that is being used by the Netlify function if you want to test the functions locally. So let's bring in our base URL and our secret key into the create customer. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to have a constant so I'm going to have this URL and our secret key. I'm going to get this from our test.environment. Okay. Now we've gotten our environment variable. The next thing is we have to bring in our node fetch that's successfully installed now. So we can bring in our node fetch. So I'm going to import fetch from fetch, and we have this. So with this, we've set up, like we've completed the first to do. So basically we can get this to do out as we've gotten that done. So that's the first thing to do. And the next thing now is, okay, we need to get all the variables. Oh, typo. So we need to get all the variables that we need to create a customer. And how do you get that variable? So if you come back to our receipt.view, we'll see that we are sending in, when we are initiating a request, we are sending in email to the endpoint. So we can get this email address and then use it to create the customer. So how do we get this email address? I can say another constant email. So we have the email equals. So if you're familiar with programming with Node.js or any of these JavaScript framework, you'll notice that there's something called request and response. So because we're using a Netlify function, this event represents that request body. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to say json.parse events.body. So this passes the event.body and it extracts out the email into this variable for us. So with that, the next thing we need to do is that which other variable do we need? We need the URL in which we're going to use to make our request. So we can build our URL easily by going to one thing too is you can some of these things I'm doing like you can go to our the Paystack documentation to see these things. So to create a customer, it's easy. You can see we have the headers, authorization, content type. We also have body parameter, email. So email is the only compulsory field for what we are doing. But if you're using a product called dedicated virtual account, you need to also pass in the first name and last name. So let's grab this endpoint, the path, and go back into our code. So URL equals base URL. We have the base URL in which we brought in from our environment variable, then the path in which we've created, and that's our URL. So finally, let's also build our headers because you can see that we need the headers to complete the request. So header, the first one we need is our authorization. The authorization header comes in the format bearer. So, and then you put in your secret key. Secret key. For the first one, the next one is the content type. So you had the content type. Is application JSON. And that's it for our header. So now we successfully initialize all our variables. The only thing left for us now is to make that request to the Paystack endpoint to create a customer. So that's going to be our last to do for this file, and we're basically done. So using the fetch dependency we've brought in, we're just going to return what we have from our fetch dependency. So we have fetch. Fetch takes in your URL first. With your URL, then you now pass in every other thing you want to pass in. The thing we need to pass in is our method. This is a post request, so we can pass post to it. The next thing is the headers we just created. This, and finally our body. So our body is going to be the email we created right now, but we need to also like stringify this email. So JSON does stringify, and we pass in our email. And that's basically it to like make a request to the Paystack endpoint or to create your customer. So you have this, your body, the method, and the header. Method can actually be like this. Okay, cool. So the headers here, like I'm using headers, but some people will probably have headers, then put a colon in front of it and have header, but I'm just annexing the JavaScript. So whichever one is fine. So, okay. So now that we've made the request, we now need to get the response. So because we're using fetch, fetch gets, it's more or less like it brings in a buffer first. So you have to first of all get that buffer and return it as a JSON response. So response dot JSON. So with this JSON, you can then return that JSON and use it for whatever you want to use it to do. So I'm going to try to make this a little. Okay, yeah. Then we can now get our data back. So we can return the we have something called the past version of this. We can return it back to and turn this back to our user. And finally, before I build that, let's just catch any error that comes up. So if you have an error, what we can do is get the error and just return the error as a string. So you can do we can return the status code of 422. 422 basically means like the request was gotten by the server, but the server could not process that request. And then we can return the body of the request. So the body is going to be let's return that error. Alternatively, you can just console the log in this place. But we can return this error. So error typically comes as a string. So you can just, or as a weird the object is not known, so we can just stringify it, and that's it for an error. But if this is successful, what we want to do now is to return this to the customer. So we can have a status code as well of 200. That means we successfully processed this, and we can return the body. So we can stringify the body and return it to the user. But because I'm using the amplify function, there's an extra thing I need to add. If I deploy this way, I'm going to have a cause error. So I need to add these headers to make it work. So there are two headers I need to add. One is accept control, accept control, I think it's accept origin, allow origin, origin. Means accept all anything that causes it. Ideally, if you are building this in your own environment, please ensure you write the right amount, your front end URL. You should do accept all origin. And the final one is to accept control headers. We'll pass the header, which is the content type in which we added the other time. So content type. And that's basically it to create our customer. So we've gotten the first leg of our integration done. We can clean that. So what we did was we installed the the node fetch library. We brought in our dependency, and we basically just consumed the Paystack customer endpoint. So passing in the email address to create the customer, and then we return the response back to the front end. So what happens is when customer is created here, the invoice gets that response. So the response for, let me go back to the browser. So when the customer is created, it comes with a bunch of detail like email, integration, blah, 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 but it also returns the customer code and the customer ID. So if you go to the payment request API on the Paystack documentation, we'll see that for us to create an invoice. So the payment request API is what is used to create an invoice. We'll see that it needs the customer, and for the customer, it needs the customer ID or code, and it needs the amount. So back into our what's it called, our code, you can see that the create customer endpoint on the front end code is sending in the customer code to sending in the customer code to the create invoice endpoint. And at the create invoice endpoint, we are passing the customer and the amount to create that invoice. So now let's head over to the create invoice function to flesh it out, or the create invoice API. So the same thing we did in the other code. So we import fetch for this, but we need something extra too for this, because we're going to be converting our offline reference to a QR code. We need to install this QR library. So I'll be installing the QR library while I flesh out other things. So yarn add QR code. While that's installing, we also bring in I can copy this from this file, and we bring it to our environment variables. So we're bringing our environment variables. Okay, so QR has been installed successfully. I also import it. So import QR code of so yeah. So import our QR code. So the fetch is going to be used for API request. The QR code is going to be used to convert our offline reference to a QR code. So we are done with this next to do. Okay, so having done that, we do the same thing we did in the previous file when creating customer. So we set all our variables. So to create in this time, we can see that we are getting two variables. We are getting the customer and also getting the amount. So let's get both out. So what we can do is that let's constant. So we have customer, we have amount, and this is equals to JSON.parse. We pass this and we pass the event dot. So having done that, same thing, we create our URL and headers as well. So I can just copy it from the previous file to make things faster. Now we need to update this path. So back to the documentation, you see that the path we need is the payment request path. So I'm going to copy the payment request path and update this to payment request. Okay, now we have all our variables, so we can clear this to do, and we have just more to dos to go. Next thing is let's make our network request. So you see that when we're creating a customer, we returned the response that we're getting from the API directly to the front end. But in this case, we can't do such because we need to convert the offline reference. We need to pass the response, get the offline reference, and use that offline reference to create our QR code. So we're going to be doing something different here. One more variable we need to do is first we need to get our response as a raw object. So analyze it as an object. What you now do is let's get this response and create await. So we await because it's network request. Same thing, passing our URL, then passing everything we need. So the first thing is method again, post requests. So if you want to know if it's a post request or not, you can see this from the documentation itself. So you can see it's a post request and the endpoint. So it's a post request. We pass in our headers, in our body. So the body is going to be to JSON dot stringify again, and then we create our body. So the first thing is we're going to use customer, the customer we got up here, and we're also going to pass in the amount. And that is it for the network request. But like we did in the previous one, this is going to come back as a buffer. So we need to also like pass it into a JSON. So just leaving like this is going to return a buffer. So but for us to be able to get the right JSON, so we're going to put in the then again and say response dot response here and response dot JSON. Okay. That's it. Now, we've made our network requests. Now we need to pass down the response and get the offline reference out of it. So network request done. Next thing is pass response and generate QR code. So for us to pass our response, going back to the documentation, we'll see that we have from the response of a payment request, we have a couple of things that are returned. But what we are interested is inside data, and it's the offline reference. So we just need that offline reference, and we can use that to generate our QR code. So back here, what we're going to do is that we can say offline reference equals, so we have our response. So response data. The reason I have to put data is because response alone contains both the status, message, and data. So we just need the dot data, and it will extract out the offline reference from it. So now the next thing is we need to create our QR code. So how do we create our QR code? So we have to first of all use this QR library we've imported. So there's a basic documentation for the QR library. So if you go to QR code npm, you can see how to use the library on the documentation there. So there are two ways to go about it. You can either use to string or you can use to data URL, and it's like the data URL that I'm going to make use of in this demo. So now we need to flesh out our QR code so we can get the data URL, which returns like a base64 representation of an image. Then on the front end, when you pass it to the image tag, it creates the image for you. So okay, I think I need to okay, yeah. So it creates the image for you. So so to do that, we're going to put it in a try catch. From the documentation, you can see they put it in a try catch. So what we can do is we also create a try catch so that we can see what's happened. So try. So when it's in the catch block, what we can do is we return, you can return an empty string. That means a QR code will not be generated. So just return an empty string for the string. And if it's successful, or like if it's successful, what we want to do is that we'll return on with, you now say QR to data URL of the offline reference. Should be in line with what we saw here. So yeah, await QR code dot data layer, and we have that. So this returns a 64 representation of the image to us, and we can use this to create the QR code. So to create our QR code, what we just do is I will say QR equals generates. So we call this function that is here. So since we've done this, we can get this out. So we call this function generates QR, and we have our offline reference. So passing our offline reference, and we are done with this as well. So finally, we can return this response to the front end, and we are done. So to return the response to the front end, we can just have our return statement and status code 200 tab body is going to be guessing the stringify, and we pass in the offline reference, and we pass in the QR. Because if you go back to our receipt.view, that is what is expecting, the offline and QR. So you have to use the right key in order to ensure you get this. And this is basically it. But like we said, we're using the amplify function, so I need to add these headers to it. So I come back here and I add headers just before the body. And that's basically it. We've integrated two endpoints, the customer endpoint endpoints. Finally, one more thing we need to do is like this is going to be the basic implementation of webhooks is webhooks. So you use webhooks to we use webhooks to notify our system that this payment has been completed. So I'm going to keep this very basic. So I'll just copy this same return and put it inside our webhook. So, but this time we don't have body. You don't necessarily need to pass body, or if you decide to pass body, you can just make it an empty body, because with webhooks, what you need to do is um, um, return a 200 to accept that yes, you've accepted what's it called, you've gotten the notification that an action has been performed, and you've received it, and after receiving it you can then decide to do whatever you want to do. So in my case, I'll just return a 200, and down there I'm going to console.log events in the past events dot body. So I don't need this. What this means is you should actually maybe save it to your DB, update your DB, send it to your front-end application to update your front-end application. For this demo, I've not wired updating the front-end application, but for the next developer workshop we are going to have, we are going to have something that updates the front-end. So that's basically it. That's all we need to do to first thing is we created a customer, we created an invoice, and we created a basic webhook to get to update our system. So back in the on the demo now, ensuring I'm on the localhost URL, localhost 9000. I refresh my page. Let me pass a another email, Andrew at test. Okay. Now, if you click on place order, you should get a QR code, and we should also get you get the offline reference, and we should get a QR code. So now the QR code is not coming up. So I'm just going to take a look to see if let me console inspect. There's no error, so I'm just going to check the elements. It's returning object. Okay, so let's go back there to see what could have gone wrong. Okay, return await QR code. Okay, I'm supposed to put an await in front of generate so that it's wait for it to get completed. All right, so save this. Refresh. Andrew.com. So place order. Aha. So yeah, so you can see that in this demo we've been able to like create customer, we've been able to like create an invoice, and we've been able to generate a QR code out of the invoice. So I'm going to move over now to the live demo first, because this is already deployed, and we're using, like I said, we're using our live secret key here. The terminal I'm with now is a production terminal and is a production device, and I can't test with the test keys I'm using for local development. So I switch back to the live environment, and then I pick up my terminal to confirm to complete payment. So again, I click on the invoices. This time around, you can see like the camera is up. So I'm just going to point it at my screen. Immediately, it scans it and it loads the invoice for us. So if I should search, it should return Damlola at workshop. Yeah. So Damlola at workshop, it shows my reference, and now I can go ahead to complete payments. Let me try USSD again. GT Bank should just work, please. So select GT Bank. I'm going to pick up my phone and try the USSD star 737 star 33 star 4 star 557 7 4 3 6. If you observe, you notice that the USSD codes being generated are different at each point. So, so this is to show that like it's uniquely generated for each transaction, and it's not reusing the old voila. Yeah. So that this is going to complete. So it's asking me to put in my PIN now. So I'm going to put in my PIN to complete payment. So once the pin comes in and I've completed, yeah. So I've gotten a payment complete notification on my phone, and now I'm going to confirm payment. So it prints out a receipt once payment is approved. Once payment is done, so you can see that we got an approved. It shows the channel, which is USSD, and it shows the USSD code that was also used to make the payment. And that's basically how. So you can close this. You can see out the receipts. Okay. Cool. So that's basically what's it called? That's basically how to like integrate the Paystack terminal into your system. So if you already make use of invoices, you can generate a QR code out of the invoice, use that QR code and scan it at the point of payment. So imagine a delivery driver right now, like when I get to as a delivery driver, I get to the point where I'm delivering something to a customer. I just need to pick up the terminal, scan the QR code, it brings it up, the customer makes payments, and they are good to go without any manual entry. It's faster, it's cleaner, and it's more efficient. And that's it with this demo. We'll now take questions. Okay, let me check the questions tab. Okay, so Kenneth's question, I'm going to pick that first. Okay, start live question. So Kenneth says, there are a few questions I would like to ask. One, how can I use more than one webhook channel to receive more than one data from Paystack dashboard? And the second one, requested that the terminal should send us location data. This is what we want the terminal, that is, we want the terminal real-time GPS location. That's more, please answer. Okay, cool. How can I use more than one webhook channel to receive more than one data from Paystack dashboard? I'm not sure I understand the question, but what I'm sensing is you want to be able to put multiple webhook URL on your Paystack dashboard. If that's the case, at the moment, that's not possible. So what we suggest, a workaround for that is your webhook URL can have like a passing mechanism. So for different, so it can be used, like one webhook URL can be used for multiple, like the purposes you want to use it for. Then you now have like tags. So if it's this tag, say you want to use your webhook URL, for example, for say you have a business for clothing, and you also have another business for say jewelry. One, you can either use two Paystack accounts to do that, or if you have to, you can use that your webhook URL and have a tag. If it's a jewelry thing, you route it accordingly to the flow to undo that jewelry. If it's not jewelry, you can then undo that flow. Then for GPS location, real-time GPS location. So I don't know if Kenneth joined the last session, but one thing we said is the Paystack terminal is for security reasons, there's no Play Store ability. The Play Store Google services are not available on the Paystack terminal. So what this means is like the Google Maps and everything cannot work on the terminal. And out of the box, you can't get real-time location, but we can use like a third-party library or use the raw data. Basically, what Android comes with its own pure location routing and everything. Google just builds on top of that to make it more efficient for everyone. So if you want to use like a real-time GPS location, what you can do is we'll have to work with you or like see how we can if you're very familiar with Android, you can use like the pure Android what's it called, Android location picking up location for the Android I've forgotten what it's called now, the library, yeah, sorry. So the Android pure library to pick location, you can use that to get the location. If this is something you want to do, you can reach out to us and we can see how we can work with you to do this. So I hope that answers your question. Okay. Can be made with terminal. Okay, I think locust man questions have been answered. Okay. Does the terminal receive updates automatically? Yes. So as you can see, like when payment was made, it received the there's a confirm button that receives the payment automatically. So if you're around when I was doing the first demo for native invoices, I used transfer. So generally, transfer is dependent on, not even transfer, any payment is dependent on the processor processing it. So USSD seems to be faster, cards are faster, but transfer like we're in Nigeria, and sometimes it takes a while. Sometimes it could be as fast as instant, and sometimes it takes a while for it to be complete. But yes, you receive updates automatically. In the next workshop, we're also going to show you a way to also like send payments from, like, instead of me scanning at all, the terminal is going to be on its own, and we actually send that payment to the terminal. Once payment is received, it updates your application as well. So yes, the terminal receives updates automatically. I need some documentation on split payments. Okay. Um, Ishak Ibrahim, is this split payment on its own or split payment for terminal? Well, the documentation shared is particularly for split payment. Well, what that is done when you are creating the invoice, when we're creating our own invoice, we really pass the customer an amount. So if I go back to Andrew, to my browser. So if I go back to my browser and I go to create payment request, so payment request receives optional parameter called split code. So once you finish creating your split, you can also pass in a split code. So if I go to code, what that looks like is at the point where I'm creating this invoice here, where I have customer and amount, I can also pass something called split code. So I can pass splits code here, and I put in that split code, whatever the split code is, and this will be split between your customer and between the partners that need to split the question is. Okay, so back to this slide. How is the Paystack terminal different from other bank POS? Okay, so we mentioned a couple of features. I don't know if you joined just in time, but we mentioned a couple of features like end of day reconciliation. It's easier because each transaction comes as a single line entry on the terminal. So it's not a lump sum like general bank POS where everything comes as a single sum and it's tied to that particular bank account. So this one, if you have like say bank accounts in different banks, you can only switch the bank in which one you collect your payments, and also like all your settlements are done to. So today, if you decide that you are using bank A, okay, you can use that. And if you decide that, oh, this bank A is no longer favorable, you want to switch to another bank, you can switch. So this allows you to like switch. Also, this like the ability to use split payments. You can also integrate like your existing business like models into the terminal. So those are some of the things that makes the Paystack terminal different. Okay. Does the reconciliation happen in real time or only end of day? So reconciliation is, let me put that up. So Paul Ayuk, does reconciliation happen in real time or only end of day? So reconciliation happens like with the typical Paystack T+1 settlement. So in all the transaction you receive, say today, you receive it tomorrow. So all this applies to business. So you receive it in +1 business day. So all the transaction you receive for Friday, you receive it on Monday. But for every other thing, like you receive it T+1 day. So for Monday, you receive on Tuesday, etc. What version of Android does the terminal use? So that's Android 5. You can check the previous presentation and you get more about the software specification or paystack.com/terminal. Okay, so confirming payments is a nice feature to have. Isn't there a limit, the number of requests per time on the Victor, do you mind rephrasing your question? So isn't there a limit to is it to the number of requests per time on the terminal? I'm not sure I understand that question. So if you can rephrase, if you are saying like, okay, like the amount of updates you can get on the terminal, I don't think that's an issue because you can only process one payment at a time on the device. So when that payment is processed, you get the update and that's it. So I'm not sure I understand. Maybe you can, if you don't mind rephrasing the question. But yeah, I think that's it. Just as a recap, we talked about the terminal, we talked about its features. So, Lucas, I'm guessing you joined late, but some of these features you can check them out to see how the Paystack terminal differs from other point of sale system out there. We did a recap on the integration flow. We created an invoice via the dashboard. We integrated the create customer API, the create invoice API, and we also implemented a basic webhook. And that's this is just one of the integration or two integration flows we've covered. In the next developer workshop, we're also going to cover another integration flow that builds on top of this with even more real-time features and self-serving feature. So that's it for this webinar, and it was nice having this session with you. You've been a fantastic audience. Thank you very much, and it's a wrap. Without any other question, we can end this session. But if there's still any other question, I guess we can keep it for a minute or two. Okay, so charts. Okay, so no questions. All right, I guess we can call it a wrap then.